Good morning, sir. My name is M. Varshasri. I'm studying in second BTech second semester in CSMC branch, and today I'm here to give a PowerPoint presentation on the topic of establishing the JDBC database connections in the subject of object-oriented programming through Java. And today's my presentation topic is about the establishing JDBC database connections. The introduction to the JDBC. The JDBC stands for the Java Database Connectivity, has been developed by the Sun Microsystems. It is a standard Java API that defines how the front-end application, maybe a web application or a simple Java application, may be access the database. It provides a standard library for accessing a wide variety of databases and the previously open database connectivity, that is ODBC API, used to be the database API for connecting and executing the query with the database. The JDBC applications are platform independent and thus they can be used for connecting with the internet. The JDBC applications are to develop the JDBC API and JDBC imported. The JDBC API is installed at the client side. Therefore, when the user wants to fetch some data from the database, the user sets up the connection to the JDBC manager using JDBC API through the Java application. The JDBC architecture. There are the two types of architectures in the JDBC, that is the two-tier architecture and the three-tier architecture. The two-tier architecture is used for the data access, where the JDBC API supports both two-tier architecture and three-tier architecture processing models for the database connections. This implies that a Java application can communicate directly with the database through a middle tier element. In this model, Java application communicates directly with the database. For this, the JDBC driver is required to, and it can be established direct communication with the database. Java application and JDBC API are located at the client machine, and the JDBC, the DBMS database are located at the database server. User sends commands to the database, where these comments are processed and the results of these statements are sent to the user. This is the process that takes place in the two-tier architecture. When it comes to the three-tier architecture, this architecture is used for the data access, and in this model, users' commands are first sent to the application server, forming the middle tier. Application server containing the JDBC API sends the SQL statements to the database located on the database server. The commands are processed and the result is sent to the middle tier, which then sends it to the user. The JDBC drivers overview. The JDBC drivers handles the communication with the database server. The JDBC drivers are written in Java language in order to connect with the database. JDBC driver is a software component comprising a set of Java classes that provides the linkage between the Java program running on the Java platform and the RDBM system that is residing on the operating system. These are basically four types of JDBC drivers, and these implementations vary because of the variety of the operating systems and the hardware's platforms available in which the Java operates. The type 1. The JDBC driver provides a standard API for accessing SQL on the Windows platform. In this type of driver, JDBC Bridge is used to access the ODBC drivers installed on the client. Whereas the type 2, which is known as the native API driver, Java interface for vendor specific API is provided and it's implemented in the native code. It includes a set of Java classes that makes the use of native interface and acts as a bridge between the Java and the native code. And the type 3, which is known as the network protocol driver. It is similar to the type 2 driver, but in this case, the user access the database through TCP connection or IP connection. The driver sends JDBC interface calls to an intermediate server, which then connects to the database on behalf of the JDBC driver. And the last one is the type 4, the thin driver. Type 4 JDBC driver is completely written in Java, and thus it is a platform independent. The JDBC driver converts these calls directly into a vendor specific database protocol. Setting up the JDBC environment. This section focuses on how to set up the connection to MySQL database from the NetBeans IDE. The NetBeans IDE supports MySQL RDBMS. In order to access the MySQL database server in the NetBeans IDE, we have to first configure the MySQL server properties. This involves the operating systems like number one is open the NetBeans IDE, right click the database node in the server window, select the register MySQL, server MySQL dialog box would open. Confirm the server host name and port are correct. The default server host name is localhost and 3306 is the default server port name. And the second step to follow is enter the administrator password. You can give any password and default set is to the blank password. At the top of the dialog box, click on the admin properties tab. Here you can enter the information for controlling the MySQL server. The step 4 is in this admin properties dialog box, enter the path or the URL to admin tool. This is the location of MySQL administration. Next, you have to enter the path to start the command. For this, look for MySQL D in the bin folder MySQL installation directory. And the step 6 is to follow that in the path to command field, type or browse to the location of MySQL stop command. This is the path where the MySQL admin, the bin folder of MySQL installation directory is located. The architecture of JDBC. The loading the JDBC driver through the architecture is the JDBC driver must be loaded into the memory before connecting it to the database. This is done using the class.forName, which is the forName is the function method where you specify the driver class name. For example, loading the MySQL driver would actually looks like the class.forName where where you specify the driver class names in the parentheses. The establishing a connection. This interface compromises methods for a connection with the database. All types of connections with the database is carried out through the connection object only. A connection to the database is established using the driver manager dot get connection method. You must provide the database URL, username and password as parameters to this method. A successful connection returns a connection object which is used for executing the SQL statements. This is a brief code to establish a connection between the database and where a lot of connections from the server and loading from the driver takes place. The executing the SQL statements. There are many types of statements in the SQL to get the retrieval of the information. Once a connection is established, the SQL statements can be executed using the statement or the prepared statement objects. A statement is used for the general purpose queries, while a prepared statement is preferred for the pre-compiled queries. Each of these objects allows the execution of the SQL commands and retrieval of results. There are many types of SQL statements for the data retrieval, such as the select statements, which are used to select the data from the database, where the syntax would be the column name from the table 1 or the table name. And the second type of SQL statement would be the insert statement, where the SQL statement is used to insert the new records in a table. The syntax for this SQL statement is insert into table name, values, and the parenthesis starts from where the value 1, value 2, value 3, and so on can be inserted. The third one, and one of the most important SQL statement that is used for the data retrieval, is the where clause. SQL where clause is used to extract only those records that satisfy a particular criteria. The syntax for the where clause would be select column 1, column 2, and so on from the table name, where column name operator value, or the select from star, that is asterisk, where the total information of that particular record will be displayed. And one of the most important one is the delete statement. The SQL delete statement, it is used to delete the records in the table. The syntax for this statement is delete from the table name, where the column name is equals to the value. The handling exceptions. This handling exception handles the errors that may occur in the database application. The handling exceptions. JDBC operations should be covered in the try-catch blocks to handle the potential SQL exceptions. Common exceptions include the SQL exception, which provides the database errors encountered while you are accessing the information. The proper execution handling ensures that the resources are released and errors are logged accordingly. The closing connections. It is crucial to close the database connections, the statements, and the result sets to free up the resources. This is typically done in the final block or using the try with resources for automatic resource management. Neglecting to close the connections can lead to the memory leaks and the performance issues in the application. So the closing the database must be very important step. The conclusion and best practices. The JDBC provides a wide variety of ways to interact with the database in the Java applications, whereas such as using the connection pooling and the prepared statements enhances the application performance and the security. The understanding the JDBC fundamentals is essential for the database effective management through the Java applications. Thank you for giving me such a great opportunity.